All right, it's time. It is time for a big energetic transition as we explore the energies this week, this coming week from June 13th to June 19th. We're looking at a background signature of Gemini, very strong, suddenly shift over to much more emotional and water. But all the while, the entire week, the main overlap is this seeking authenticity. We're centering in truth, according to the I-Ching. All right, this is our triangulation for the influence. We're going to do this triangulation again for the solution. That's towards the end, and that is critical that we get in alignment with the stars so that we're not wasting energy, doing wrong action, and just generally being in alignment with the overall context of what's being afforded to us. So June 13th to 19th. One quick word on the DreamBot. It's looking good, but just needs a little more time, a little more maturing. And otherwise, I'm pretty happy with the progress there. Tropical Astrology, we have Mercury Kazemi. That is Mercury and Sun in exact conjunction and parallel. So it's a super Gemini Mercury. And that you'd think to be the dominant force this week. It is happening very early on in the week, and there's something more dominant. So that becomes the focus, the transition point. The transition point is Mercury, Venus. They are literally hand in hand. Unfortunately, I don't think physically we're going to be able to see that just because they're so close to the sun. But energetically, you're going to have Mercury and Venus literally hand in hand moving into Cancer out of Gemini at the same time. And then almost immediately smack right into and in conjunct with Pluto. And I think the I-Ching 61, it is a direct hit on the essence of that energy, of that shift. Lines 2 and 6 in the I-Ching speaks to centering in the truth, but basically searching for authenticity. We're wanting connection. That's the common thing. Even though we start with a dominance of Gemini, end up with a water dominance through by the end of the week. What's common across it is connection, but the context sort of changes. But according to the I-Ching, I think it's going to be a much more centering in truth, but from a connection standpoint. So truth in others, truth in self, and high congruency score. Can't wait to show you. And big shout out to a 3-way tie for the best comment award. And these are, it was a record video last week in terms of how many comments. Truth is everything. Love that handle name. Saturn DJ and Sea Star Monkey. Wonderful handles. Congratulations. Tie for first. You should be proud of yourselves. And the context of the comments are premium. Great. And then also we had so many people writing about the plant of the week. It was a 1. That was the dominant comment or suggestion. So we're going to keep that up. I'm not happy about the quality of the picture that I have this week, but looking forward to exploring that, making that better as we go. So thanks everybody for your feedback. This is where I would do a DreamBot run. What was the top word? Not that it matters, because it does need to be cleaned up in terms of the baseline. Baseline has to heal. And it is. It's healing. Big picture here. You are here. We are basically first quarter moon in a Gemini sequence, a lunar cycle. We're heading into the first of 2 Capricorn full moons. That will be our next CIRF report. So big shout out to the Capricorn moon people, the Capricorns. I'm jealous. But once we get through the Capricorn full moons, then we get to talk about Aquarian full moon. and I'm already excited about that. But it's got to be exciting to be a Capricorn in this time frame throughout the summer. That's going to be fun for you guys. All right, energy window is shifting right smack dab in the middle of our week. Is this Venus and Mercury moving directly together, hand in hand, moving into Cancer, and the emotional mayhem begins. And it's going to be a 3-week period. It's either going to be just all out, everyone's emotional, or it's going to be a maturation. And I don't know which one. Maybe both. Maybe mayhem, we'll learn from it, get disciplined in it, and probably care a lot more about things by the time it's said and done. Oh, there's a lot going on in between these two vertical black lines. That's our week in a different format. I would like to show you all the 17s on here. This speaks to the preciseness of the shift. There's a big shift on the 17th of June, and that splits our energy window as well. Here's another representation. The Gemini just really crests off, and the emotional mayhem. It's probably more of a vertical line around Sunday and Monday. On the blue line, much more kind of a shearing and quick. So here's our overview. We still have that Gemini square over to Pisces. So a lot of idealism and caring and connection. That's this idealistic connection thing that just is really sticky. It's like Velcro this week, but it's a pressured thing. It's a should thing. It's competing with it. So we want to have fun, Gemini. But then there's this in the back of the mind, Saturn, mainly Neptune in Pisces, creating that pressure to, connect, to care, to, there's a socially acceptable way. So there's this idealism in the social thing. So there's that. We have a first quarter moon about to happen. So we're looking at the most of this week in terms of lunar phase is first quarter to waxing gibbous. So it's a strong get up and go, moving forward kind of energy. A lot of this will be in, this moon phase will be in Libra. So that just brings even more socially acceptable behavior. But when moon enters into Scorpio in a waxing gibbous state, that's when the wheels fall off of the Gemini and things start moving a lot more watery. Let's see here. And then, this little gem here, just the reminder that I'm not going to be talking about it all week, just a little reminder that Mars square Pluto is still here, still in effect. It's a power struggle, inner and outer power. Both of these exhibit a lot of power. Mars in Taurus is a lot more stable, and once gets fixated on a project, it's hard to stop. Mars in Taurus. And then there's this pressure to bring, the disclosure and facts into the mix with Pluto and Aquarius. And so that's the backdrop, or the overview. And now we'll go day by day, starting with Friday the 14th. We have on 14th in the wee hours of the evening, so 12:18 a.m. when most people are probably sleeping. This is Central Daylight Time. That's going to be your first quarter moon. This is not the chart for the first quarter moon, by the way. She is in waxing gibbous at this point, but earlier at 12:18 a.m. on Friday, there was the first quarter moon in Virgo. But this chart is for the Mercury Cazimi. They're exactly, Sun and Mercury are exactly together at 24 degrees, 6 minutes, and they are parallel with each other, as you can see here, meaning they're in the same inclination. So all that put together, they're on top of each other, or at least apparent to us Earth beings. And what we get from this is the Gemini super blender, because we're including Venus. She's only 2.5 degrees, 3 degrees tops from this Cazimi. And then remember this pressure cooker. It's very strong. It's very ideal, but it's also very should based and obligated for the social engagement. So it's this Gemini super blender, the Quicksilver communicator, and you can see the kind of the end of my phrases are open to the next sort of thing, which is the idealism. There's kind of a socially acceptable thing, and that's going to leave us empty on the authentic realm. And this is kind of the start of this yearning. You don't really know it's going to be a deep subconscious kind of thing, but this search for true emotion, for true authenticity. Who's the real person? Yeah, they're all acting like they should, but who's the most real? And that speaks into trust and connection at a deeper layer. So the powerful stellium in Gemini, pressured by idealism of Neptune, creates a lively, mentally agile persona with a gift of self-expression and social connection. And I got this picture is much more of kind of a formal setting, and that speaks to the influence of Neptune and Saturn, to be honest. But this stellium in Gemini, the super blender, is influenced towards curious, adaptable, always ready with a witty comeback or a fascinating story, but with the strong idealism and formality, which veers us away from the authenticity. So putting all that together, you might feel a heightened verbal and written communication skills with the pressure to do it right. That's going to be aggravating to us dominantly mutable people, but it is what it is. It also might feel ability to adapt any social situation and put others to ease, and because you have to, with the square to Neptune. Potential for success in writing, teaching, media, network roles. And this is the last of the Mohicans for you Gemini folks. Me with a double strong Gemini. This is kind of the last few days. You get about 3 to 4 more days of enjoying your special background. And yeah, it's pressured with bringing some other aspects into it, but it should be pleasant nonetheless for the Gemini strong folks, the mutable air people, mutable 6, air 6. The background signature is definitely speaking to the Geminis. Saturday the 15th, not a whole lot of difference from what I just said. But Sunday the 16th, this is kind of preliminary to the emotional mayhem window. And it is the Venus square Neptune goes exact. Venus at 29 degrees, 52 minutes. So just in the last throes of Gemini, makes the square to Neptune. By the way, here's a trivia question. Will Neptune soon go into Aries? And it kind of looks like it, only 8 minutes away. Yeah, it's a slow planet. It might take a while to get to those 8 minutes, but the answer is no. Neptune is going to get very close to the cusp and then turn retrograde and stay in the home, his home of Pisces, for the foreseeable future. And that will be in the window of emotional mayhem, keeping it much more Piscean. Okay, so the overarching archetype for Venus square Neptune is this imaginative idealist. The combination of the aspects create a tendency to see the best in people and situations, even when faced with challenging realities. That's the square aspects. The imaginative idealist has a gift of creative self-expression and emotional attunement. And it's exacerbated by, that attunement is exacerbated by the Gemini trine moon aspect. Just all this triplet here with the trine to the waxing gibbous in Libra. It just brings much more. There's actually if we didn't have this, we would have just a total shear of energetic shift. But with this, we kind of get a little bit of a gradual shift towards the ideal emotional attunement thing. These folks here with these alignments that I just spoke to may struggle with discernment, boundaries, and turning dreams into reality. You might feel, regardless of your energetic natal chart, might feel vivid imagination and creative gifts. You might feel a strong intuition and emotional intelligence, capacity for deep compassion. This is the experienced mother, the ideal mother, responding to the crying baby. And then it happens on Monday the 17th. Mercury and Venus conjunct and parallel. Here it is. Mercury parallel Venus. That brings the inclinations in the same bit of sky. If they weren't so close to the sun, you'd probably be able to see them. The specks would be right over each other. It would be magic, but I doubt anybody would be able to see that. We're only looking at 2 degrees away from, 3 degrees away from the sun, maybe 3.5. But yeah, no way. It's going to be burned out. But the point is, Mercury and Venus moving out of Gemini at the same time. They actually go exact azimuth at 7:37 a.m. Central Daylight Time. That time, for some reason, is going to be important later. And because this is our dominant energy chart, we're going to use this to convert over to the solution for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a direct congruence to the I-Ching with the change lines, I-Ching 61. But it's also at the day of the energetic shift from one energy window to another. It's also smack dab in the middle of our CIRF week. So all those put together tell me that it's undoubtedly, this is the conversion chart. This is the dominant energy for the week. Mercury and Venus moving out of Gemini, hand in hand, going into Cancer. We have to include all those other aspects. We have the in conjunct, that's the hidden one in all this, the blue lines right here. The in conjunct over to Pluto brings the centering and truth archetype into this move, because otherwise we would just get Mercury and Venus going into Cancer, which is very caring and nurturing and motherly. But now we also get this need for truth, and this speaks to the authenticity. It's the yearning for authenticity, the search for it, the expectation of it. The overall archetype, when we include all the alignments together, including the in conjunct Pluto, is the intuitive empath. This combination of aspects paints a picture of deeply feeling, sensitive soul who is learning to navigate the depths of human emotion and connection. This, for a lot of people, are going to be overwhelming emotion, and they won't know where it's coming from. You guys will already know. The intuitive empath is a profound capacity for unconditional love and emotional alchemy, but may struggle with maintaining boundaries, facing reality, and communicating their own needs. Remember, we're just coming off these 2 planets. We're coming off from it's not important to be this. The influence isn't being authentic. The influence is actually expecting it from others, or trying to ascertain it from others. And so we get in this habit of almost getting used to, in a few days' time, of not authentic. So it really puts us into a very deeply subconscious state of non-trust and feeling of separation, isolation from others, socially isolated. So you got extra emotion, extra caring, extra nurturing, and feeling a little on the isolated side. I wouldn't expect anybody to really consciously feel that, but that's what I'm expecting the subconscious soup to feel like: profound intuitive and emotional intelligence, ability to create deep, soulful connections with others. This is where the should comes off. The idealism sort of starts to shed, and now we can be really authentic. But these folks, especially as we get more into the water, may struggle with codependency, enmeshment, and weak boundaries. I will have you see that water now is the dominant background, 5 planets. There is no clarity in terms of cardinal, fixed, and mutable, but water is dominant on Monday the 17th once Mercury and Venus enter into Cancer. And so now there's this, notice from the pictures, we've got a whole different backdrop with the water backdrop. It's the soulful shapeshifter. The inconjunct aspect creates a sense of unease, as if one must constantly adjust between the needs of self and others. This archetype is learning to communicate, Mercury, their deepest feelings and desires, Venus in Cancer, while also honoring their need for independence and authenticity, which is the Pluto in Aquarius. That is very strong. This is actually the time Mercury in conjunct Pluto goes exact. And they're both at 1 degree, 38 minutes. You might feel profound emotional healing and transformation, especially when you're connecting with someone who is truly authentic. The ability to empathize deeply and hold space for others' growth, because if you know your own independence and your own truth, that will actually make you more probably available for other people's emotional content. The gift for giving voice to the unspoken and shining light in the shadows is another option. It's a very sort of a therapeutic environment possible. If you notice, you probably didn't because I didn't mention it, but I have 2 charts here that are on the 17th, and I went ahead and skipped the 18th because this is the big energy, the big shift. So the first one is at 7:37 a.m. That's the Mercury and Venus going exact and parallel exact, 0 degrees, 19 minutes of Cancer. And then the second one is when Mercury and Pluto make their perfected in conjunct. So then on Wednesday, it's just more of the same. The water is still the dominant element, and all the alignments that we spoke to are swayed towards more of the water backdrop than the Gemini. So Gemini at this point is really the only thing hanging on is Jupiter and Sun. Sun will be really solidifying the emotional mayhem once we get him into Cancer as well. All right, I-Ching. Centering in truth. Centering in truth involves becoming conscious of the relationship between your heart and the circumstances of your life. What does that sound like? Doesn't that sound like authenticity? Well, with the change lines, we become distant from it. As you'll see, truth becomes power when you let go of prejudice and make yourself receptive to how the world really is, i.e., centering in truth. And when you include the social part of that, we are going to tend to crave the authentic people over the unauthentic. And you can know that by who do you trust? And without any conversation, who do you trust? Well, it's the people who are attuning to you subconsciously and showing their authentic self. All right, change line 2 is, listen to that, this is pretty cool. A crane calling in the shade. Its young answers it. I have a good goblet. I will share it with you. The line emphasizes the importance of connection and mutual responsiveness. Changing line 6. He is sincere and meets with response. This is the way of heaven. It's responding to. This line highlights the culmination of sincerity, authenticity, and the natural response it elicits from the universe. Oh, we got to solidify the influence here. Solve it for the solution, and here it is. I've got the response. This is the responding to the needs. Responding to the needs, because this is going to be post 17th. This is going to be the second half of our CIRF week, mainly, is responding to other people's needs, showing empathy, caring. The Great Mother. This week involves a serious and swift change in the background energy when Mercury and Venus walk hand in hand into Cancer and immediately make an inconjunct to Pluto. The energy shift has its climax on June 17th. What doesn't change all CIRF week is the desire to connect with others, but the first part of the week is more idealistic, social influence, while the back half is much more oriented to caring, empathy, and nurturing, as indicated by our picture. Watch as the collective gradually becomes more emotional as the week wears on. So, with the onset of emotions, how should we behave? And there's our segue to the solution. Start with the I-Ching. It's put the change lines in. You get hexagram 3, difficulty at the beginning. Here are the behaviors that are suggested. Patience and perseverance. Don't rush. That's a hard one for me. Seek support and guidance. Look for allies. Stay flexible and adaptable. Build a strong foundation. Maintain a positive attitude. Any questions there? Let's move on. This is where it really gets interesting. All right, we're going to put our conversion chart in. Remember, that was the Mercury and Venus going exact on the 17th. We get hexagram 15 of the rave, and that's not all that unusual so far. We get the Taurus because all week is primarily sidereal Taurus. But when I went up and changed the time, I didn't have to change it. I said, wait, it's the 7:37, the same? Oh, wait, it gets even better. The snapshot from the last CIRF report was also the dominant energy happened at 7:37 a.m. on the last CIRF report. Look, I had to go back and look, and I go, oh, there it is. Look, they're both 7:37, but obviously on different days. But it gets even more interesting because when we get into the seconds, it's exactly the same. Look at this. So this is last week on 6 June. Was 7:37 and 30 seconds exactly a.m. Central Daylight Time. And this week, the Mercury and Venus going exactly together and it becomes our dominant energy happens at 7:37 and 30 seconds exactly on 17 June. So that was weird. All you numerology folks, what does that mean? There's sort of a like there's 10-10 on there. So does that go down to 2? Why is 2 important? 2 is connection. Is that a push? I'm not a numerologist, so I don't know. What do you guys think? I just found that incredibly interesting. Seemed important to me. All right, the rave says modesty 15. This is the most difficult rave. I had to spend almost a half a day just contemplating this and just really meditating on it just to figure out what it even talking about. So we have line 3. This is where Venus and Mercury are together into Cancer. It's on this line, ego inflation. The risk that modesty, once recognized, will self-destruct. So what we have is, again, the authenticity question. We humans are really good. We don't know it. Well, let's say the socially skilled, as a default, we're pretty good at knowing who's authentic and who's not. All right. Now we can tell who's modest or who's humble and who's not. Of the ones who are modest, sometimes we want to point that out if it doesn't seem authentic. So we point it out. We call them out on it. Well, this line is saying, don't do that. It says, when the otherwise negative contrived modesty is here, reinforced by recognition and maintained as an effective strategy. In other words, this line suggesting to have enough ego to recognize modest behaviors and intent, to reinforce them strictly to keep the dynamics in balance. It's you can't judge the modesty, even though you might think it's coming from a negatively contrived modesty. In other words, they're maybe overemphasizing they're trying to manipulate the situation with modesty. That's the thing. Don't judge it. Don't point out their malintent. So what's the goal here? It's to keep modesty going when doing so brings the environment to balance, regardless of the intention behind the modesty. So even if they are trying to manipulate with modesty, according to the rave, it's essential that you recognize the modest behavior in order to keep it going. It's really weird. So let's look at what modest behavior looks like. What are you looking for in other people? You're looking for when they're downplaying achievements, when they're avoiding the spotlight, when they're giving credit to others, even when they did the item. That's modesty. You could also be modest in how you dress, dressing conservatively, using humble language. The people who are listening more than they're speaking, respecting others' opinions, being considerate and polite. There's a lot of modesty behaviors. So anyway, that one's a really hard one, and you wouldn't be wrong to just ignore the modesty thing altogether, but it's a hard one, and it's what we do here for our solution. Here it is. Zooming in, here's our triangulation. We have the I-Ching 3, difficulty at the beginning, constructing a foundation. We have the rave mandala. We have recognizing negative modesty. We have Sidereal Taurus. We've been working with Sidereal Taurus for a few weeks now, but the moon phase, first quarter moon, waxing gibbous, really works well with the Sidereal Taurus, in my opinion. As the energetic shift unfolds this week, we have, for the most part, a practical solution script. The I-Ching, the moon phase, and the Sidereal Taurus all confirm that we should move forward steadily and fundamentally towards practical, achievable goals. And that's 3. These 3 say the same thing, pretty much. Persevere towards a strong foundation while mindfully adjusting to the inevitable energy window transition. There's going to be an energetic shift. People are going to be acting different as a result. Right at the big shift, the 17th, take a moment to follow the rave 15.3 and I suggest meditate on it. I'll go back at the end of this video so you can snapshot the rave, and if you want, you can kind of just mull over it and read how it should work. But I find it very important because it's right on that energy window shift. This, in part, is to prepare for the emotional mayhem window. If you've got big emotional mayhem, who do we gravitate more to? Do we gravitate to the obnoxious people who had unpredictable behaviors and are wigging out? Or are we going towards the modest people who seem to be calm? So I think that's why the modesty thing is so important in the rave. Basically, be watching for the modest people, the modesty in people, and consider recognizing it such that it continues despite it possibly originating from a negative intention, i.e., maybe they're trying to manipulate or control the situation. That's okay. Modesty, good, according to the rave in this environment, emotional environment. And so don't be afraid to recognize modesty as you see it, no matter the intention. Don't recognize it to stop the modesty. That would be judging it. That would be calling it out. That would be questioning it. Recognizing it as you accept it in order to perpetuate it. Yeah, it's confusing. All right, here's our plant of the week, and it's mugwort. Sorry for the poor quality of the picture. That would be my fault. I am going to try to make that better. And I'll just go ahead and zoom into the originator, gift crafted for humanity with love by Sean Elizabeth Nelson. Thank you, Sean. And so the plant this week is mugwort. And why is mugwort important? It's known as the mother of herbs and readily available as a tea. Mugwort supports a wide range of physical and spiritual processes, offering a protective component within the liminal realm associated with the moon and Neptune. There's such a strong influence both of these do. Moon and Neptune, especially on the back half as we go into this period potentially of overwhelming emotions. I didn't realize that mugwort is, and by the way, this is not medical advice. We're not curing any disease, but mugwort just happens to be good for digestion, improves liver function, female reproductive cycles, antioxidant, antibacterial, antifungal, anti-tumor, anti-parasitic. I don't have that as part of my anti-parasite tea that I use for about 6 weeks every night. So maybe have to add mugwort. Mugwort is a powerful protective dreamtime ally. She eases overthinking, allowing for the dreams to come into reality and make a creative mind. Now, here's a little background. Named after the goddess Artemis, goddess of the moon, mugwort invites us to fearlessly enter the illusionary space and understand that we are protected always. She invites us to seek higher intuition and to release angers and resentments held in the liver. Mugwort offers true psychic protection, release, and understanding of the hidden parts of ourselves, allowing us to birth anew that which we create with newly revealed information and self-understanding or maturity. Allow the archetype of Artemis and mugwort to guide and expand the intuitions and dreams, while providing a safe place to experience these changes here in 3D. Thank you, Sean. And as promised, I will end this video going back to the rave so that you can snapshot that if you would like. So that's about as close as I can get. So ego inflation, the risk of modesty once recognized will self-destruct. What's the goal? To keep modesty going when doing so brings the environment to balance. Think about big picture, how if everyone's emotional, and I'm not saying it's going to happen this week, but in the energy window, I think you're going to see a lot more emotions. And wouldn't more modesty balance that out in general? Probably yes, especially if the emotions are more motivating, like anger and hate and all that. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for your support. Have a great week and stay in balance. See you next week. Namaste.